Welcome to the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. Your hosts, Bill McKenna, Paul Robert, and special guests discuss ideas for creating alignment in your sales and marketing efforts and ways to accelerate growth. Now let's get started.
Good morning, Paul. How you doing today?
Good, Bill. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Hey, looking forward to a good conversation here. I think today we're going to do a little different, a little sort of a special edition of our podcast. We started this podcast a while back. I guess we're in maybe our 12th episode now, which is exciting. Yeah. We're still novices, right? We're learning a lot each time we do this, aren't we?
But just to get the technology right, Bill, for two old guys like us, that's the biggest challenge, I think.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we're learning each day. But here's the thing. Right. The reason we started this podcast was because we're both extremely passionate about helping credit unions grow. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, everybody. It's not very often, Bill, that you find something that literally applies to everybody, right, in the market. Every credit union needs to grow in order to thrive and remain relevant. And so how we can help them and find ways to help them is the ultimate goal here.
And all of our discussions really are based around that. This podcast is all about that, whether it's us or special guests that are coming in from credit unions or other suppliers to our industry. I think we all have that common goal of wanting to grow and do better. And that's what this podcast is all about. And so today, we're going to talk about some of the foundations of that, and then a little bit more about specifically how we can help some credit unions with what we do individually. You and I have worked together on sales and marketing for a long time. So that's what we're going to chat today. It makes sense?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it. Let's start by talking about the growth piece, Bill.
Okay. So Paul, maybe you could tee up, a couple of those things we see as those high level goals. What have we identified that most credit unions are looking to do?
Well, we've always needed to grow loans and deposits, right? That's been fundamental since the beginning of time. It's just a question of what the balance is and what the macroeconomic issues are and so forth. But the loans and deposits is going to be on the list. But I think there are two others that are really our key to success in the areas that we need to focus on. And the first one is we need more members, right? And within that context of new members, primarily younger members, so that we can catch them earlier in their life cycle and catch those life stages and so forth. I think membership growth, Bill, is got to be number one for the majority of credit unions out there.
And I'll totally agree with that. And we see that a lot of credit unions have older members, so we have to continue to work towards younger ones. And we also see that we lose a certain amount of members just because attrition, age, et cetera, the change in segs and partners and core sponsors. And there's so many things that have changed. And we're not going to do a seminar on that today, but we know that membership goal is a critical one, as you just mentioned.
Well, you mentioned change in segs. I would add on to that as credit unions move into new markets, a lot of them have tapped out their present market, or at least to a large extent have tapped out. So they're finding new and different markets to go into. What does that look like? On the surface, it seems like it should be pretty easy, but it's not. And it needs a dedicated marketing and sales effort. So that's another part, Bill, I think of relates to membership growth, and that is going into new and different markets.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah. So there's a lot of things we could talk about. And, the last thing on my mind there is we know that people are always looking for new members, which is great. Most people, by the way, join a credit union for a product or service. There's an offer. There's something they join for. The reason they do it, the reason they make that change, again, it's another seminar. We've talked about it and we'll continue to. But honestly, the low hanging fruit for many credit unions still is deepening the relationships with the people they have. So we know that so many times we see that as a miss. Don't you agree?
Well, totally. And I think that's kind of the danger as we, as credit unions, spend so much time and effort on finding new members, but we're missing out on what could be the gold mine, which is really digging deep and creating a richer relationship with our existing members. There's so much that we're leaving on the table. There's so much, just by looking at a credit report, just by asking some general questions, just by promoting, specific products or services. There's just so many ways that we could deepen relationships with existing members that'll go a long way in accomplishing that growth that we desire.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always when we have these conversations, I feel like we're putting a puzzle together because we have a piece here on this, a piece here on this, a piece here on this. And just recently when we spoke, we talked about that at some seminars we did. But actually, it's interesting because you can start bringing in data, how you use data, how you're using technology, what tools you have, how online account opening, the speed of your applications for loans. All of those things affect this. We're not just saying it's just marketing, it's just sales, but it's all of that. And credit unions that are moving forward and progressing, they have to look at all that, but there's still something really valuable about good marketing, targeted the right way, and people, right? Paul, you're so all over the people because if we don't have great people, it's hard to accomplish most of the things we want to accomplish.
Well, and Bill, it's like a lot of things, but I think it is more significant than many other things. What we want to do and need to do from the people's side has to change. What we do today can't be what we were doing just a couple of years ago. There's such a change dynamic, such a change in the culture, not just in credit unions, but all financial institutions, and more importantly, all retail organizations. How we attract employees, how we onboard employees, how we continue to cultivate their skills and their behaviors and so forth. If you're doing it the same way you were just 5 years ago, you're behind the curve and you're going to constantly be pushing that boulder up the hill. So we really got to find new and different ways to attract people, get people up to speed so that they can execute on those growth strategies that we just talked about, whether it's new markets or deepening relationships and capitalizing on those opportunities that marketing drives in the door. Credit unions need a different type of person, a different profile of person to be able to execute on that right now.
Yeah, that's good. So there's a lot of things we're talking about here. Of course, as we do our podcast, we'll touch on many of those different areas, and we already have, but we have a lot more to come. But really, this whole reason we're doing this is about the synchronization of the sales and marketing efforts. And that's what I want to chat a little bit about today and why we think it's important that we can provide some resources to credit unions to help them do that better. They have to work hand in glove together, right? We've talked about that. They can't be siloed. Marketing has to have a seat at the table. We need to understand how this all works together. And many times that's the miss we see.
Yeah. I saw it just with a client this week, Bill, where the marketing exec was sitting at the table and intimated that it was the first time she had been included in the executive leadership meeting, and then went on to make a comment that, we used to go out to the branches and see what was going on and talk to the staff and so forth. The inclination was that they hadn't done it, but that they should continue to do it or get back to doing it. That's exactly what we're proposing, right, Bill, is that marketing and sales, marketing and strategy, marketing and growth discussions, it's got to be an intricate relationship between those two.
Here's just a quick shout out to our sponsor, ironistic.com. Hey, in today's world, everyone knows the importance of having a great website and having an integrated digital marketing plan. If your credit union, community bank, or any other company is looking for that help, I can highly recommend ironistic.com. Check them out.
It does. And again, now you get back to people because the level of the people we have in our organization is very important, or the partners we're working with. It's extremely important to make all of it happen. But yes, marketing is critical. Aligning the two is where we really see things happen, right? So we need to make sure that we're finding ways. And marketing, when you look at marketing's job, again, we break this down kind of simple. Marketing's job is to create opportunities. Those opportunities could come in a variety of different ways, right? They could come in digitally as an online loan app or an online membership app. or they could be someone talking to someone in a branch or a call center. But it's creating an opportunity. So some of those opportunities we can capitalize on digitally, but many times they lead to a person, especially for something someone's not comfortable with. So, Paul, that's where you take over, right? It's the alignment of the marketing's job, again, to create leads and opportunities. Sales job is to close the deal. So how does that work on your end?
Well, let's look at that, Bill, specifically on the front end and the back end. Okay, you just use the word opportunity, right? And that's what we're trying to create is opportunities. If I am working, if I'm head of retail, if I don't know what opportunities you're going to be creating and producing, I can't prepare my people in order to capitalize on that. And so a lot of times the mismatch that we see is marketing is driving opportunities in the door, but the people have been trained and coached and developed on, well, let's call it service behaviors, not sales behaviors. So we've got a sales opportunity, but we've got a service mentality. And that's where the disconnect comes in. We're not capitalizing. Yes, the member leaves happier than when they came in, but did we deepen the relationship with them? Did we capitalize on those marketing opportunities? Did we do for the member everything that we could do for them in order to help them save money or make more money or save time, etc.? So that's one example, Bill, of where I see the disconnect in 75% of the credit unions that we work with. Marketing is driving sales opportunities in the door. Retail has prepared their people to deliver service instead of sales to those opportunities.
It's so good. That is so good what you said. And it's really about listening to them, right? What their needs are, because we don't want to sell to them. We don't want to sell them something that fits. But as an instance, I always talk about call to action. So, again, someone's looking at a home equity loan, and we know home equity. We got a rate, we got a line of credit, we got a fixed product, and here's the rate and fee. But everybody has rates and fees. But what makes the difference is when that person talks about why they want a home equity loan, or even when they go online to apply and they happen to see a blog article on the 3 best things to use home equity for, or how it works with different lifestyle segments. When your people get that comes with culture and training too, right? And understanding the product. It's not a service. Here's your transaction. Let's get done. We're listening and we're interacting with people in a way that creates value with them and lets them know we care. And you can do that digitally, but people that get that and aren't selling, that's so valuable.
Yeah, and what you get with the personal touch, Bill, is the ability to be proactive and to be proactive on a consistent basis. Sales is a dirty word to a lot of people, to a lot of organizations, but if we define it the way you just laid it out, or, maybe a slightly different way, but nonetheless in the same genre, if you will, that's what we need to do in order to position it, because it's all about being proactive. If somebody comes in and says, I need this, but we know that there's a better alternative to them, and we don't propose that, or we don't steer them in that direction because it truly is a better alternative, a better product for them, we've committed malpractice. And, you can call it service. You can say, hey, I gave the member what they wanted. I gave them what they came in for, and they were happier when they left. But if they left with a product that wasn't as good for them as something else, we've committed malpractice. And so that's got to be an integral part of this process. Hey, there's one other component to that. We talked about being prepared on the front end for the opportunity. It's also on the back end, right, Bill? So if you're performing a campaign or executing a campaign, we didn't need to know about that on the back end too. So if it is a certain product like home equity, like you mentioned, we got to be preparing our people to be able to talk about that product instead of, a member come in and says, oh, hey, I got something about your home equity loan. Can you tell me about that? And we're like deer in the headlights. We got to prepare people to capitalize on those opportunities.
Without a question. And I can tell you right away, I've experienced that when with larger organizations, of course, working with lots of credit unions over the years, but internally with a couple of large organizations, I spent some time. And I remember what was so important. It was like we prepared literally a overview of the campaign, the project, and it was a PowerPoint, and we would take them through the graphics, what was going to be out there, what the members would see or the potential members would see. We talked about the offer. We also talked about some educational content they could read. But see, here's the other thing. When you do that and communicate that well across your organization, that also takes time. And you cannot run up to the last day of your campaign that's kicking off, kick everything off, and your people in the back end have no clue what's happening. So you have to have that campaign prepared in advance properly, and you have to have a good week minimum when people see that campaign so they can learn about that campaign and they're ready for it. What we find ourselves in this society today and in marketing is everything can be done so quickly and so last minute that the preparation is missing. And then, Paul, I think it's a serious miss internally because people aren't in the loop.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's exactly right. That's where technology can be our friend or our foe, depending on how we utilize it. Hey, Bill, I think, back to where we started this conversation, wanting to help credit unions, I think that's a critical thing that you and I can bring to the table for a credit union is just focusing on this synergy and how can we get marketing and sales working hand in glove so that we optimize our investments in both of those areas and ultimately optimize our growth. But it really is helping those two entities, marketing and sales, come together and work in unison as best as they possibly can. That's our real focus, isn't it?
It is actually. And I think it's even more than sales and marketing, but it's the entire organization. They all play parts, right? They all have roles. So we have this seminar we've done before, and it's kind of what, again, led to us doing this podcast. And it's called Sales and Marketing, the Powerful 1-2 Punch. And so we built this seminar, this workshop, if you want to call it. It could be whatever. And we would love to present that to more credit unions because what we're talking about today, I think it's eye-opening, and our seminar is certainly deeper than this. It breaks it down into lots of areas. But we found when we present this information to a credit union, whether it's a senior management team or if it's the entire organization, it's eye-opening, and it makes them go, here's a miss. We could do better here. And then what we can do is help identify and strengthen some of those things that they may say we're missing at. So we love that opportunity, right, Paul? And you know all about the session. We've done it a bunch of times.
Yeah. And sometimes, Bill, it is just a little thing. It's not going to be a big miss, to use your term. It's going to be something little that's going to make all the difference. That is going to be that missing piece, if you will. The other thing that I would say, and I'm thinking back to my days as head of retail, there's nothing wrong or nothing bad about just being able to validate what you're doing and to have affirmation that, yeah, we're on the right page. That's motivating. That builds confidence to, kind of get a third party, unbiased perspective on our growth strategies and on the execution of our marketing and sales efforts. So that's another component of this, another reason why we'd like to bring it to as many credit unions as we can, just to help them make certain and feel completely confident that what they're doing is, in fact, the right direction that's going to allow them to grow as much as they possibly can.
Yeah. And I think some of the value that we bring to the table there is, I always say no one knows everything, right? None of us do, but we learn a lot from people, especially, we've both had the opportunity. It's been such a real blessing to us to be able to work with so many credit unions, learn so much, different personalities, different people, different locations, different goals. So us being able to identify some of those misses is something we do just because we're kind of used to seeing, oh, this worked well here. Hey, by the way, this did not work well.
Yep. Yep.
So
Best practices, right, Bill? I mean, don't reinvent the wheel. If something's working elsewhere, then let's think about it and apply it to your credit union to see if it'll work here. So.
yeah. So what we'd like to suggest is if a credit union is interested in this, and again, we'd be glad to talk in advance about what we do and how it would work. We'd be glad to present this, whether that's in person or if that's via Zoom, online, whatever. We could do either way. I would also say that any opportunities that credit union leagues or other credit union organizations might have for a special session or a two-part session at a workshop or a convention or whatever, we'd love to do that as well. And we would really enjoy presenting some of this information, and we're confident it'll bring some value.
Yep. So reach out to us at cusalesandmarketing.com, right, Bill?
Yep. cusalesandmarketing.com, or both of us obviously have our websites, and Paul, yours is fi-strategies.com, and mine is you can reach Bill at just McKennaMarketingNetwork.com. Actually, it's McKennaNetwork.com. I figured I'd get that right. So yeah, we would really enjoy that. And I know we talked a lot, and each time we do one of these webinars, we find they're really interesting. So we'd love to have that opportunity to work with you guys.
Sounds good. Well, let's keep the focus, Bill, on helping credit unions grow, because we've got such a tremendous opportunity. There's such a tremendous need. We've got to continue to cultivate the credit union movement. And I think synergizing sales and marketing in each and every credit union out there is a tremendous way of making that happen.
Sounds good. Thanks, Paul. Enjoyed the conversation. Buddy. Talk to you again.
Yep. Have a great one. Bye-bye.